You know, when I set out to make this video, it was going to be a positive piece about a cool climbing mechanic. Jusant is a new game by Don't, the studio best known for Life is Strange. Through a beautiful, artistic intro, the game tasks you to climb a mountain that once housed a whole civilization, but now lies abandoned. While the immediate story is told without words through the actions of the player character, the entire narrative is actually told on two other levels. The small stories of the people that used to live there, and the personal story of one of the few named characters that passed this way before you. Themed around environmentalism and conflict of both the class and the generational variety, the story is well told and hits those emotional notes so very important in such an experience. While climbing the mountain, you're invited to find a few different collectibles, but the main ones are without a doubt the notes through which the story unfolds. Climbing then becomes the means through which you unveil new chapters of the narrative and also serves as an integral part of the narrative itself, connecting all three layers together on both thematic and mechanical levels. The mechanics of climbing itself are well executed. Left trigger grabs with your left hand, right trigger grabs with the right. Gone are the days of just hold forward prevalent in Assassin's Creed and the like. The length of your climb is governed by a stamina meter, gradually removed by regular climbing or removed in chunks by jumping. Jumping, however, grays out a part of the bar, making you either plant your feet firmly on the ground or make use of one of the permanent checkpoints to regain the meter in full. So far so good, right? Sure. But there's one small caveat to consider. This is a game about climbing in which you cannot fall. Every time you start a climb, your character will automatically attach a safety rope to a nearby surface. This rope serves as a checkpoint from which you cannot detach yourself while you're still climbing. The prevalence of this rope gets to such ridiculous levels that you cannot climb a ladder without attaching the rope to the floor right next to it. Compounding the issue is the fact that while not attached to the rope, you cannot even attempt jumps. An invisible wall will straight up stop you in mid-air in places where it's perfectly okay to jump out with the rope attached. At one point I managed to glitch the game, so I jumped without the rope, only to be unceremoniously rubber banded back to the floor. Ironically, this safety rope is actually an unsafety rope. Removing the rope makes you feel safer than when it's on, because now you literally cannot fall. So now you're thinking, okay, so it's just a checkpoint to prevent loading after death. What is the big deal? Well, dear viewer, the problem manifests itself in the simple fact that it's not the only tool at your disposal that's supposed to prevent your falls. Every climb, you get to use 3 additional rope attachments, serving as intermediate checkpoints between you and the objective, which you can plant at any point. What you are looking at right now is me making a mistake and falling all the way to one of the permanent checkpoints on this climb, from right before the next one. I haven't been using the small attachments, so I have no intermediate checkpoints. See how long it takes for me to return to where I fell from. That's right, 50 seconds. Almost all of the climbs in this game do not go on for longer than a minute or two before a checkpoint, making the small attachments simply meaningless except for the 2 or 3 little occasions where you specifically need them to progress, but by the time you get there, you've forgotten about their existence completely. What about the stamina meter then? Surely when that empties, you're gonna plummet to the ground, right? Sure, you will, if you ever manage to use it up completely. In my entire playthrough, I have not done so once, except when testing the limits. At any point in the climb, you can just press the left stick, upon which your character will wave his free hand a little bit, and pff, all of your available stamina reappears. Alright, but what about the part of the bar that you cannot use, spent after jumping? Well, the trick to that is that you cannot use up all of it. The lowest part of the meter will always be available, so even if you go on a reckless jumping spree and find yourself spent with no flat surface to recover, you still can continue, albeit just a bit slower. The base mechanic then, while fundamentally fun to play around with, unfortunately overshadows the rest of the game and has far-reaching consequences that I don't think the developers intended. The lack of a failure state removes all tension from the part of the narrative closest to the player, their own. It also has a cascading effect to the other layers. There are no stakes, so why would you care? The pinnacle of this comes in the form of one of the characters you read about throughout the game falling from the mountain. Rather than upping the threat and evoking an emotional response, it just makes them look incompetent. If I cannot fall and can easily climb around the entire mountain, what are the rest of these fools doing, struggling so much? The moment-to-moment gameplay also suffers. The transitory periods between the various nodes becomes a tedious commute rather than an introspective moment it feels it should be. It makes the whole game feel routine, like your character is a technician that comes to fix a broken appliance, rather than the real-life parable it's clearly written to be. The devs are doing their best to make the route interesting. Moving platforms, timed jumps, but the underlying problem remains the same. I really wanted to like this one more than I did, but the game couldn't help itself, and in making sure I didn't hurt myself, I lost some of the fun I was meant to have.